Hae-Min Lee, Maryland. On January 13, 1999, she disappeared after leaving school that afternoon. Her body was discovered on February 9, 1999, in a shallow grave in Leakin Park, a densely wooded area known locally as one of the most dangerous places in Baltimore. She had been manually strangled, left hidden beneath dirt and debris in a location where bodies were sometimes found. Her ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was arrested on February 28, 1999, and convicted of first-degree ending in February 2000. The prosecution's case relied heavily on testimony from Jay Wilds, who claimed Syed had shown him Hay's body in the trunk of her car and enlisted his help burying her. Cell tower evidence purportedly placed Syed's phone near Leakin Park during the burial timeframe. Syed received a sentence of life plus 30 years and maintained his innocence from the moment of his arrest. For 15 years, the case remained a closed matter. Another tragic ending of a young person whose ex-boyfriend couldn't accept the relationship was over. Then everything changed in October 2014, when journalist Sarah Koenig launched the podcast Serial, which investigated Syed's conviction over 12 episodes. The podcast became a cultural phenomenon, eventually garnering over 300 million downloads and winning a Peabody Award. It introduced millions of listeners to the case and raised serious questions about the evidence used to convict Syed. The podcast highlighted problems with the cell tower evidence. A TNT's own fax cover sheet indicated the data was unreliable for incoming calls. Yet incoming call data was precisely what prosecutors had used to place Syed at the burial site. Questions emerged about whether Syed's defense attorney had provided effective counsel, whether alternative suspects had been adequately investigated, and whether the timeline presented at trial even made logical sense. But nothing could have prepared anyone for what happened next. In September 2022, Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby filed a motion to vacate Syed's conviction, citing violations of Brady rules requiring prosecutors to share exculpatory evidence with the defense, the existence of alternative suspects who had never been properly investigated, and unreliable evidence that should never have been presented to the jury. On September 19, 2022, Judge Melissa Finn vacated the conviction, and Syed walked out of prison after 23 years behind bars. Charges were dropped entirely on October 11, 2022, after advanced DNA testing excluded Syed from biological evidence found on the victim's shoes. But the bizarre twists weren't finished yet. In March 2023, an appellate court reinstated the conviction by a 2-to-1 decision. The reason had nothing to do with Syed's guilt or innocence. Hay's brother Young Lee had not been given adequate notice to attend the vacatur hearing in person, which violated the victim's family's rights under Maryland law. The Maryland Supreme Court upheld this reinstatement in August 2024 by a 4-to-3 vote. The case took yet another turn in February 2025, when state's attorney Ivan Bates withdrew the motion to vacate, calling his predecessor's investigation false and misleading. On March 6, 2025, Judge Jennifer Schiffer resentenced Syed to time served plus 5 years probation under Maryland's Juvenile Restoration Act, which allows individuals convicted as juveniles to seek sentence reductions. Adnan Syed, now 44 years old, remains legally convicted of Hae-Min Lee's ending, but is free. He lives in Virginia with his wife and works at Georgetown University's Prisons and Justice Initiative, helping other incarcerated individuals. The Lee family maintains Syed is guilty and that justice was served with his original conviction. No one else has ever been charged with Hae-Min Lee's ending. The most troubling aspect of the current situation is this. As of May 2025, Baltimore police had not tested the unidentified DNA found at the scene against the alternative suspects identified in 2022. That DNA, found on Hayes' shoes and definitively not belonging to Syed, could belong to her actual attacker. But it remains untested, sitting in an evidence room while Syed lives under the shadow of a conviction and Hayes' family believes justice was done. The case that captivated millions through a podcast became a labyrinth of legal proceedings, vacated convictions, reinstated convictions, and DNA evidence that excludes the convicted person, but has never been used to identify an alternative suspect. 26 years after Min Lee was found in Leakin Park, the question remains: has justice been served, or has it been denied to everyone involved? What makes this case so bizarre isn't just the podcast that brought it to international attention or the legal roller coaster that followed. It's that a conviction can be vacated based on DNA exclusion and alternative suspects, then reinstated not because new evidence proved guilt, but because paperwork wasn't filed correctly. It's that unidentified DNA sits untested while everyone argues about whether the right person is being held accountable. Hae Min Lee deserves justice. Her family deserves answers. And those answers may be sitting in an evidence room, waiting for someone to test DNA that could finally reveal the truth about what happened on January 13th, 1999. While Hayes' case became famous through a podcast, the next victim's case transformed American law itself. Stephanie Roper. On April 3rd, 1982, Stephanie Roper, a 22-year-old Frostburg State University senior majoring in art, was driving home to Courtroom, Maryland, when her car suffered 3 flat tires on Floral Road in Prince George's County. It was evening, she was alone, and she needed help getting her vehicle off the road. 2 men stopped their vehicle and approached her, offering assistance. Jack Ronald Jones, 26 years old, and his companion presented themselves as good Samaritans who would help a stranded motorist. Instead, they kidnapped Stephanie at gunpoint and began a 5-hour ordeal that would become one of Maryland's most horrific cases. Stephanie was driven to multiple locations across county lines. When one perpetrator accidentally called the other by name during the assault, they realized she could identify them if released. They decided to end her life to eliminate the witness. Jones fractured her skull with a logging chain, then ended her life with a firearm. They doused her with gasoline and set her on fire while she may have still been alive, then used an axe to sever her hands to prevent identification. Her remains were discarded in a swamp near Mechanicsville. Both men were caught, tried, and convicted. The physical evidence was overwhelming. The confessions were detailed, and the jury found them guilty of one of the most brutal offenses in Maryland history. Stephanie's family prepared themselves for maximum sentences that would ensure these men never walked free again. But the real nightmare was just beginning. Despite the horrific nature of the offense, both perpetrators received 2 concurrent life sentences, making them eligible for parole in approximately 11.5 years under Maryland law at that time. Even more devastating to the Roper family, they were excluded from observing most of the trial, denied the right to give a victim impact statement at sentencing, and not even notified when court dates were changed or postponed. The men who ended Stephanie's life had family members who were allowed to plead for mercy at sentencing. But no one was permitted to speak for Stephanie, to describe who she was, what she meant to her family, or how her absence would affect those who loved her. The justice system treated her family as irrelevant observers rather than people who had lost someone they cherished. Stephanie's parents, Vincent and Roberta Roper, were silenced in that courtroom in 1982. But they refused to stay silent outside of it. They founded what is now known as the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, which has helped pass over 100 victims' rights bills in Maryland alone. Their advocacy led to Maryland's mandatory victim impact statement law in 1983, which guaranteed that families could speak at sentencing hearings. In 1987, Maryland enacted life without parole sentencing for the most heinous offenses, something that didn't exist when Stephanie's case was tried. In 1994, Maryland passed a constitutional amendment for crime victims' rights with 92.5% voter approval. April 3rd was designated as Crime Victims and Advocates Commemorative Day in Maryland. At the federal level, Stephanie Roper's name appears in the Crime Victims' Rights Act of 2004, which guarantees federal crime victims' rights, including notification of proceedings, presence at court hearings, and the right to be heard at sentencing. When victims' families speak in courtrooms across America today, it's partly because of what happened to the Ropers in 1982. Jack Jones took his own life in prison years ago. But the legal legacy continues. In December 2024, the other perpetrator had a 2-day hearing in Anne Arundel County Circuit Court, seeking sentence reduction under Maryland's 2021 Juvenile Restoration Act, which allows people convicted as juveniles to seek resentencing. Judge Elizabeth S. Morris's decision is pending as of early 2026. Roberta Roper, now in her late 80s, testified at that hearing, finally speaking in a courtroom after being silenced 42 years earlier. She told the court about Stephanie, about the family's loss, about the decades of advocacy work born from injustice. The woman who wasn't allowed to speak at her daughter's case in 1982 finally had her voice heard in 2024. The bizarre twist in this case isn't about DNA or shocking confessions. It's about how the justice system can compound tragedy by treating victims' families as irrelevant. It's about how a mother who wasn't allowed to speak for her daughter in 1982 spent the next 4 decades ensuring other mothers would never be silenced the same way. It's about how Stephanie Roper's name appears in federal law, guaranteeing rights that didn't exist when she needed them. Stephanie wanted to be an artist. Instead, she became the catalyst for transforming how America treats crime victims and their families. That transformation came at a terrible price, but it came nonetheless, changing the legal landscape for millions of families who would face similar tragedies in the decades to come. While Stephanie's case changed laws to protect victims' families, the next case involved someone pretending to be a victim himself. Laura Wallen. Laura Wallen, 31 years old, was a beloved social studies teacher at Wild Lake High School in Columbia, Maryland. In 2016, the senior class had named her Teacher of the Year, a recognition of how much students appreciated her dedication and warmth. In September 2017, she was 14 weeks pregnant with a baby boy she had already chosen to name Reed. Her boyfriend of 7 years, Tyler Tessier, had proposed marriage earlier that year. When Laura told him about the pregnancy, he cried tears of joy and immediately began planning their future together as parents. He spoke about baby names, discussed nursery colors, and acted like an expectant father, thrilled about the coming addition to their family. What Laura didn't know, Tessier was simultaneously engaged to another woman he had been dating for 10 years. He was living a double life, maintaining 2 serious relationships with 2 different women who both believed they were his only partner. Neither woman knew the other existed. On September 2nd, 2017, Tessier told Laura he was taking her on an adventure to a remote field in Damascus, Maryland. Laura was excited about the surprise outing and texted her sister a photo of the location, not knowing that photo would become crucial evidence in her case. That night, in that remote field, Tessier ended Laura's life with a single shot to the back of her head using a .22 caliber weapon. He buried her body in a shallow grave and returned home as if nothing had happened. When Laura didn't show up for the first day of school on September 5th, her family knew immediately something was wrong. Laura loved teaching and would never miss the start of the school year without explanation. They reported her missing, and a massive search began involving hundreds of volunteers, law enforcement agencies, and media coverage across the region. On September 11th, 2017, Laura's parents held a press conference pleading for information about their missing daughter. Tyler Tessier attended and spoke at that press conference, tearfully holding Gwen Wallen's hand throughout. Cameras captured him looking distraught as he addressed the public. "Laura, if you are listening, it doesn't matter what's happened. There is nothing we can't fix together." Mark Wallen later explained the agonizing choice the family made. "It was absolutely the hardest thing that my wife would do, would be to sit next to him and hold his hand. She had to hold his hands with two hands because she was shaking so badly. But we did it." Police had revealed this was a calculated investigative strategy, letting Tessier speak publicly while they gathered evidence against him. 2 days after that press conference, on September 13th, 2017, police discovered Laura's body in the exact location she had photographed and sent to her sister. She had been ended with a single shot to the buena, back of the head. Tessier was arrested and charged with first-degree offense. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The photograph Laura had sent showing the location, text messages revealing his double life, forensic evidence placing him at the burial site, witnesses who could testify about his deception of both women. Prosecutors prepared for trial, confident in their case. On September 6th, 2018, the morning opening arguments were scheduled to begin. Tessier was found deceased in his jail cell, having taken his own life with a bedsheet. He left multiple notes, but never explained why he ended Laura's life or expressed remorse for what he'd done. Prosecutor John McCarthy called it the coward's way out. In an unprecedented move, prosecutors presented their full case to the media and the Wallen family in the courthouse lobby that day. They showed the evidence that would have been presented to the jury, the timeline, the forensic proof, the text messages revealing his double life. The family got to see the case that would have convicted him, even though there would never be a trial. The Wallen family channeled their grief into advocacy. Governor Larry Hogan signed Laura and Reed's law in May 2019, which adds up to 10 years to sentences for certain offenses against women known to be pregnant. The law recognizes that ending the life of a pregnant woman means ending two lives, the mother and the unborn child she was carrying. Laura's memory lives on through the Laura Wallen Drama Scholarship at Murray Hill Middle School, helping students pursue the performing arts she loved. Her story was featured on Hulu's How I Caught My Killer in 2024, ensuring her case wouldn't be forgotten. What makes this case so disturbing isn't just the double life Tessier maintained or the way he ended the lives of Laura and their unborn son. It's that he stood at a press conference, held the hand of Laura's grieving mother, and begged Laura to come home, all while knowing exactly where her body was buried because he had put it there himself. He looked into television cameras and played the concerned boyfriend while Laura's family desperately searched for answers he could have provided at any moment. The teacher who was named Teacher of the Year never got to meet the baby she'd already named Reed. The man who cried tears of joy about becoming a father ended both their lives to hide his double life from being exposed. And when he finally faced accountability for what he'd done, he took the coward's way out, leaving Laura's family without the trial and conviction they deserved to see. While Tessier hid his guilt behind tears at a press conference, the next perpetrator hid in plain sight for over 2 decades. Leslie Preer. Leslie Ann Preer, 48 years old, was a legal assistant who volunteered teaching English as a second language at a local library in Montgomery County. On May 2, 2001, she was found deceased in her upscale Chevy Chase, Maryland home, strangled and battered against the foyer floor. Blood was splattered across walls and doorways throughout the entrance area, evidence of a violent struggle between Leslie and her attacker. Initial suspicion fell on her husband, Carl Sandy Prier, who admitted to marital problems in recent months. He failed a polygraph test administered by investigators, which deepened police focus on him as the primary suspect. But biological evidence found under Leslie's fingernails, clearly from her attacker, did not match Sandy's DNA profile. The evidence proved he wasn't the person who struggled with Leslie in that foyer. Sandy Prier lived under a cloud of suspicion for 16 years until his passing in 2017, never knowing who actually ended his wife's life. Friends and acquaintances wondered if he'd somehow been involved despite the DNA evidence. The unsolved case hung over him for the rest of his life. A constant reminder that someone had taken Leslie from him, and that person had never been identified. The case went cold for over 2 decades. Detectives periodically reviewed the file, hoping new technology might provide answers. In September 2022, Detective Tara Augustin made a decision that would finally break the case wide open. She submitted blood evidence to Othram, a Texas-based forensic genetic genealogy company that specializes in using DNA to build family trees and identify suspects through their relatives. The DNA was traced to a Romanian family line through painstaking genealogical research. Augustin recognized the surname Gligor immediately. It appeared in the original case file from 2001. A tip about someone named Gligor had been submitted to police in January 2002, 9 months after Leslie's ending. That tip had sat in the file for over 20 years without being properly investigated. Eugene Gligor had dated the Prier's daughter, Lauren, for 5 years during high school. He had been practically part of the family during those years, going on family trips, attending holiday dinners, playing board games in the Prier home, spending countless hours with Lauren and her parents. Leslie had always been very kind to him during the relationship. He was someone the family trusted, someone who had eaten meals at their table and been welcomed into their lives. But investigators needed his DNA to confirm the match from the genetic genealogy work. They couldn't just approach him and ask for a sample. He would refuse and potentially flee. So detectives staged an operation that sounds like something from a spy novel. On June 9, 2024, customs officials at Dulles International Airport conducted a fake secondary screening when Gligor arrived on an international flight. He was directed to a private room for what appeared to be routine additional questioning. Water bottles were strategically placed in the room. Gligor, thirsty after his flight, drank from one of the bottles and discarded it when finished. Detectives were waiting nearby and collected the bottle within minutes of him leaving the room. The DNA from that water bottle matched the crime scene evidence from 2001 exactly. There was no doubt. Eugene Gligor's DNA was under Leslie Prier's fingernails because he had been the one who attacked her in that foyer 23 years earlier. Gligor, now 44 years old, was arrested on June 18, 2024, becoming Montgomery County's first cold case solved using forensic genetic genealogy. He pleaded guilty to second-degree ending on May 7, 2025. On August 28, 2025, Lease sentenced him to 22 years in prison plus 5 years supervised probation. When asked why he ended Leslie Prier's life, Gligor claimed he couldn't remember due to blackouts from substance use at the time. He offered no real explanation for why he went to the Prier home that day in 2001, or what led to the violent confrontation in the foyer. His daughter Lauren, now an adult, called him a wolf in sheep's clothing in her victim impact statement at sentencing. Eugene Gligor is currently incarcerated at Maryland Correctional Training Center in Washington County. He has filed a motion asking the court to reconsider his sentence. arguing that 22 years is too harsh for someone with no prior record who pleaded guilty rather than forcing a trial. The case has been featured on ABC's 2020 in an episode titled First Comes Love, Then Comes Murder, and on NBC's Dateline in A Perfect Spring Morning, bringing national attention to how genetic genealogy can solve decades-old cases. What makes this case particularly chilling is that the person responsible was someone the family knew and trusted. Eugene Gligor wasn't a stranger who broke into the Prier home. He was Lauren's former boyfriend, who had been welcomed into their lives for years. He had sat across from Leslie at dinner tables, probably helped with dishes, maybe even received birthday or holiday gifts from her. She had been very kind to him during his relationship with her daughter. And then, for reasons he claims not to remember, he went to her home in 2001 and ended her life in a violent struggle that left blood splattered across the foyer. He left her husband to discover her body, left her daughter without a mother, and let Sandy Prier live under suspicion for 16 years before his passing. The tip about Gligor that sat in the case file for 20 years represents one of the most frustrating aspects of cold cases. Sometimes the answer is right there in that file, waiting for someone to connect the pieces. If that tip had been properly investigated in 2002, could Gligor have been arrested then? Would Sandy Prier have lived the last 15 years of his life knowing his wife's case was solved rather than dying with it still unsolved? Those questions have no answers now. But what's certain is that genetic genealogy and a fake customs screening at Dulles Airport finally brought justice for Leslie Prier, 23 years after someone she'd been kind to took her life. While Leslie's case remained cold for over 2 decades, the next victim's case sparked a national debate almost immediately. Rachel Hannah Morin. Rachel Morin, 37 years old, was a mother of 5 from Bel Air in Harford County, Maryland. On August 5, 2023, she left for an evening jog on the Ma and Pa Trail, a popular pedestrian path that her family had walked together since her children were young. It was a route she knew well, a place where she felt safe exercising. Within 6 minutes of leaving her vehicle at the trailhead parking area, Rachel was deceased. Her body was later discovered in a drainage culvert approximately 70 to 150 feet off the trail, hidden from view of anyone passing by on the main path. DNA evidence was collected at the scene and ran through databases. The profile matched biological evidence from a March 2023 home invasion in Los Angeles, California, an assault on a woman and her 9-year-old daughter during a burglary. Doorbell camera footage from that Los Angeles attack had captured the perpetrator's face, providing investigators with visual evidence to match against potential suspects. Through forensic genetic genealogy, the FBI traced the suspect's DNA profile to family members living in El Salvador. The genealogical research pointed investigators toward a specific family line, narrowing the search significantly. On May 20th, 2024, which would have been Rachel's 38th birthday, investigators identified Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, a 23-year-old Salvadoran national. What authorities discovered about Martinez Hernandez's history was deeply troubling from multiple angles. He had been apprehended and expelled by U.S. Border Patrol 3 times in January and February 2023, before successfully entering the country without authorization on February 13, 2023. Despite an Interpol red notice for serious offenses in El Salvador describing him as armed, dangerous, likely to escape, and engaged in serious harm, he had managed to enter and remain in the United States. He was arrested on June 14, 2024, at a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where officers found him casually sitting at the bar, as if he had nothing to hide. The manhunt that had consumed law enforcement resources across multiple states ended with him drinking at a bar, apparently believing he wouldn't be caught. The trial began April 1st, 2025, in Harford County Circuit Court. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence found on Rachel's wrist, neck, and Apple Watch, all of it matching Martinez Hernandez's genetic profile. The evidence connecting him to the scene was overwhelming and scientifically certain. The jury deliberated for less than 50 minutes before finding him guilty on all counts: first-degree ending, first-degree forcible offense, third-degree offense, and kidnapping. On August 11th, 2025, Judge Yolanda Curtin imposed the maximum penalty allowed under Maryland law: life without parole for the ending, plus life for the forcible offense, plus 10 years for the additional offense, plus 30 years for kidnapping, all sentences to run consecutively, meaning one after another, rather than simultaneously. Judge Curtin's words at sentencing were direct and unambiguous. You are not a candidate for rehabilitation. There is simply no hope to rehabilitate you. Martinez Hernandez will spend the rest of his life in prison with no possibility of ever being released. But Rachel Morin's case became about more than the prosecution of her attacker. The case ignited a national debate about border security and immigration enforcement. Rachel's brother, Michael Morin, spoke at the Republican National Convention during the 2024 presidential campaign. Rachel's mother, Patty Morin, testified before the House Judiciary Committee about immigration enforcement policies. The case became a focal point in political debates about how individuals with serious warrants in their home countries can enter the United States despite multiple previous expulsions. Martinez Hernandez had been caught and returned 3 times in the span of a few weeks, yet successfully entered on his 4th attempt and remained in the country for 17 months before being arrested for Rachel's case. What makes this case particularly tragic is how preventable it might have been. If Martinez Hernandez had been held after his 3rd apprehension and expulsion, he wouldn't have been in Maryland on August 5th, 2023. If the Interpol Red Notice for serious harm in El Salvador had triggered additional scrutiny, he might have been detained rather than allowed to move freely across the country. Rachel Morin left for a jog on a trail her family loved, a place where they'd made happy memories together. She was exercising on a summer evening, doing something millions of Americans do every day without incident. Within 6 minutes, she was gone, attacked by someone who shouldn't have been in the country, who had a warrant for serious offenses in his home nation, who had been caught and expelled 3 times before successfully entering. Her 5 children lost their mother. Her family lost a daughter and sister. And a community lost the sense of safety they'd felt on a trail they'd walked for years. All because someone who was supposed to have been kept out of the country wasn't. And Rachel Morin paid the ultimate price for that failure. If you've made it this far and enjoyed deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. While Rachel's case sparked national immigration debates, the next victim's case revealed similar system failures, but this time, the warning signs were even more obvious. Kayla Hamilton. Kayla Hamilton was 20 years old and had high-functioning autism. She was determined to live independently despite the challenges that came with her condition. In July 2022, she had recently moved to a mobile home in Aberdeen, Maryland, with her boyfriend, and was working night shifts to support herself. She was proud of her independence and the life she was building for herself. 5 days before her ending, a 17-year-old stranger named Walter Javier Martinez moved into a room in the same mobile home due to issues with his half-brother. Kayla didn't know him. They had no prior relationship. He was simply someone who needed temporary housing and ended up living under the same roof. On July 27th, 2022, Kayla had just gotten home from working the night shift when Martinez broke into her room while she slept. Startled awake, she grabbed her phone and called her boyfriend. But the call went to voicemail. That voicemail would become one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in Maryland criminal history. The voicemail recorded over 2 minutes and 30 seconds of Kayla's final moments. It captured her cries, her struggles to breathe, and Martinez apologizing in Spanish while strangling her with her phone charger cord. After she passed away, he committed additional offenses against her body, stole $6 from her belongings, and went to lunch with his half-brother like nothing happened, according to investigators. Police were called when Kayla was found. The investigation began immediately. But what they uncovered about Martinez's background was shocking in its implications for how the immigration system had failed to protect Kayla. Martinez had crossed the border without authorization in March 2022 as an unaccompanied minor, just 4 months before ending Kayla's life. According to a House Judiciary Committee report, he had been arrested in El Salvador in 2020 for association with the MS-13 gang, one of the most violent criminal organizations in Central America. But when he was processed at the U.S. border, DHS never made a single phone call to El Salvador to verify his background or criminal history. Martinez had a visible gang tattoo on his body. DHS protocols specifically require inspection for such tattoos as indicators of gang affiliation. Despite this requirement, he was released to a sponsor in the United States and allowed to move freely throughout Maryland. After Kayla's ending, police quickly identified Martinez as a suspect through the voicemail recording and other evidence. While they awaited DNA confirmation, they requested an icy hold on Martinez to ensure he wouldn't be released. ICE denied the request because he was a juvenile, despite him being a suspect in an ongoing investigation. What happened next defies comprehension. Martinez was placed in foster care and enrolled at Edgewood High School with approximately 1,400 students, a building full of teenagers going to class every day. No one at the school was informed that Martinez was a suspect in an ongoing investigation or that he was a known MS-13 member. Students, teachers, and staff had no idea they were sharing space with someone police believed had just strangled a woman to death. While incarcerated awaiting trial, Martinez wrote a letter to a pastor in El Salvador. In that letter, he confessed to 4 separate endings, 2 forcible offenses, and additional serious offenses, all believed to have been committed in his home country before he crossed into the United States. The young man who DHS released to a sponsor without verifying his background had potentially ended multiple lives before he ever arrived in Maryland. Martinez pleaded guilty to first-degree ending on August 21, 2024. He was sentenced to life in prison with all but 70 years suspended, meaning he must serve 70 years before becoming eligible for any form of release. Maryland law prohibited life without parole because he was under 18 at the time of the offense. But the 70-year sentence ensures he'll spend the vast majority of his life incarcerated. Kayla's mother, Tammy Nobles, has become a fierce advocate for changing the system that failed her daughter. She has testified before multiple congressional committees about the specific failures that allowed Martinez to harm Kayla. In October 2024, she filed a $100 million federal lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health and Human Services, arguing that their negligence directly led to Kayla's ending. The Kayla Hamilton Act passed the House of Representatives on December 16, 2025, and awaits Senate action. The bill would require enhanced screening of unaccompanied minors for gang affiliation, including mandatory checks, with home country law enforcement before release to sponsors. It would prevent situations like Martinez's, where someone arrested for gang membership in their home country crosses the border and is released without anyone verifying that arrest record. What makes this case so devastating is how preventable it was. Martinez had a documented gang arrest in El Salvador. He had a visible gang tattoo. DHS protocols required checking for these exact indicators. If a single phone call had been made to El Salvador to verify his background, Martinez would have been detained rather than released. Kayla Hamilton would still be alive, working her night shifts and living independently like she wanted. Instead, she came home from work one morning, fell asleep in her own bed in her own room, and was attacked by someone who should never have been in the country. Someone whose gang affiliation was documented and visible, but never checked. The voicemail that recorded her final moments stands as evidence not just of Martinez's actions, but of system failures that had deadly consequences. Kayla was 20 years old, working hard to live independently despite her autism, proud of what she was accomplishing. She deserved to be safe in her own home. The system that was supposed to screen dangerous individuals before releasing them into communities failed her completely. And now her mother spends her days testifying before Congress and filing lawsuits, trying to ensure no other family loses a daughter the way she lost Kayla. While Kayla's case involved recent system failures, the next case remained unsolved for 4 decades before shocking everyone with who the perpetrator turned out to be. Catherine Lyon and Sheila Lyon. On March 25, 1975, Catherine Lyon and Sheila Lyon walked from their Kensington, Maryland home to Wheaton Plaza Shopping Center. Their father, John Lyon, was a well-known Washington, D.C. radio personality at WMALAM. The girls were excited about going to the mall together, looking forward to browsing stores and maybe getting pizza for lunch. A neighborhood boy saw them seated on a bench talking with a well-dressed, middle-aged man carrying a briefcase with a tape recorder, a figure who became known in the investigation as the tape recorder man. The boy thought nothing of it at the time. Around 2:30 to 3 p.m., a friend saw them walking in the direction of home. They were never seen alive again. Police launched a massive search operation. 122 National Guardsmen combed Montgomery County on foot and in helicopters. Lakes were dragged, sewers were searched, forests were examined. Investigators developed composite sketches of the tape recorder man based on witness descriptions. Tips poured in by the hundreds. But the girls had simply vanished. The case haunted the Washington, D.C. area for decades. John Lyon mentioned his missing daughters on air occasionally, hoping someone listening might remember something from that March day. The family never stopped searching, never stopped hoping for answers. 1 week after the girls disappeared, an 18-year-old named Lloyd Lee Welch Jr. approached mall security with information. He claimed he saw the tape recorder man force 2 girls into a car in the parking lot. Police interviewed him about what he'd seen. They administered a polygraph test. He failed it. His statement was marked "Polygraph lied" in the case file. And investigators dismissed him as someone trying to collect the reward money that had been offered for information. For 38 years, Lloyd Welch's statement sat in that case file, marked as lies from someone who failed a polygraph. Meanwhile, he moved on with his life, eventually being convicted of offenses against minors and serving time in prison. In October 2013, Cold Case Sergeant Chris Homrock was reviewing the Lyon sisters' file when something caught his attention. Welch's 1977 mugshot, taken 2 years after the girls disappeared, closely matched a second composite sketch that had been developed during the original investigation. This sketch depicted a long-haired young man who had been seen leering at the girls near the mall. The sketch had never been widely circulated, but it was in the file, and it looked remarkably like Lloyd Welch. Homrock tracked Welch to a Delaware prison where he was serving 29 to 33 years for offenses against minors. When detectives sat down to interview him about events from nearly 40 years earlier, Welch opened the conversation with, "I know why you're here. You're here about those two missing kids." Over multiple interviews, investigators eventually pieced together what happened. The crime didn't end at Wheaton Plaza. Welch's family had property at Taylor's Mountain in Bedford County, Virginia, about 2 hours from Maryland. That's where the girls were taken, and that's where they passed away. A cousin, Henry Parker, told detectives he had helped Welch burn 2 Army-style duffel bags with red stains in a bonfire at Taylor's Mountain in spring 1975. The bags smelled like death, according to Parker. The bonfire burned for several days, consuming whatever was inside those bags. Investigators tested Welch's father's basement, where the girls had allegedly been held before being transported to Virginia. Luminol testing revealed extensive human blood from floor to ceiling, evidence of horrific events that had occurred in that space 4 decades earlier. The girls' bodies have never been recovered, despite extensive searches of Taylor's Mountain. Recovered human tooth was identified as potentially belonging to one of the victims, but it was lost by the Bedford County Sheriff's Office before genetic testing could be conducted, a devastating blow to the families hoping for definitive answers. On September 12, 2017, Welch pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree felony offense in Bedford County Circuit Court. He admitted participating in the abduction, but denied committing certain acts and denied the actual ending. He was sentenced to 2 concurrent 48-year terms, meaning he must serve 48 years before becoming eligible for parole. Lloyd Welch, now 68 years old, was transferred to Virginia custody in January 2025 to begin serving his sentence for the Lyon sisters' cases. He had been serving time in Delaware for other convictions, but the Virginia sentence will keep him incarcerated for decades to come. Tragically, both parents passed away without seeing. Welch begins serving time specifically for their daughter's cases. Mary Lyon passed away in June 2024. John Lyon passed away on June 26, 2025. At 85 years old, he spent 50 years searching for answers about what happened to Catherine and Sheila, becoming an advocate for other families of missing persons while carrying his own unimaginable grief. Federal investigators are reportedly looking into other possible offenses Welch may have committed over the decades. His pattern of behavior and access to remote locations raise questions about whether other unsolved cases might be connected to him. What makes this case so bizarre is that the perpetrator gave himself away 1 week after the abduction. He approached security and told them he'd seen what happened. He failed a polygraph. His statement was marked as lies. And then he was dismissed and allowed to leave. The answer to who took Catherine and Sheila Lyon was literally in the case file from the first week, marked as unreliable and ignored for 38 years while the real perpetrator lived his life, committed other offenses, and went to prison for different cases entirely. If that statement had been investigated more thoroughly in 1975, if the failed polygraph had prompted deeper scrutiny rather than dismissal, if investigators had looked at Welch's family property in Virginia, could the girls have been found? Could their bodies have been recovered before evidence was destroyed in bonfires? Could their parents have had answers decades earlier instead of spending 50 years wondering what happened? Those questions have no satisfying answers now. What's certain is that Lloyd Welch inserted himself into the investigation, failed a polygraph, and was dismissed as a liar trying to get reward money, when he was actually the person who knew exactly what happened because he was involved. The man they were looking for told them he was involved in the first week of the investigation, and no one believed him. While the Lyon sisters' case involved a single perpetrator, the next cases revealed something even more disturbing: a pattern hunter. Karen Lofton and Carissa Lofton. Karen Lofton, 45 years old, was a registered nurse who had recently started working as a school nurse at Lake Arbor Elementary School. Her daughter, Carissa, 16, was a junior at Riverdale Baptist High School with aspirations of becoming a model and fashion designer. They lived on Southall Drive in Largo, Prince George's County, a quiet residential neighborhood where families felt safe. At approximately 2:30 a.m. on January 26, 2009, an intruder disabled their home security alarm and entered through an unlocked window. The attack was swift and deliberate. Karen was found in a corner of her bedroom where she had crouched to protect herself. Carissa was attacked in her own bed. Both had been ended with a firearm, but Carissa managed to call 911 before she passed away. In a chilling recording later played on multiple true crime programs, she whispered, "Ma'am, I've been shot. Me and my mother have been shot, us bleeding to death." Police arrived within 5 minutes, but found both victims had already passed away. The case initially went cold. Investigators had limited evidence and no clear suspects. Then, less than 7 weeks later, another mother and daughter were found deceased less than 1 mile away, Dolores and Ebony DeWitt. An FBI profiler analyzed both cases and concluded they were just weird coincidences and not connected. 2 double killings of mothers and daughters within 7 weeks and less than a mile apart were determined to be unrelated. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives was investigating illegal weapons trafficking in the area. They identified Jason Thomas Scott, a 26-year-old part-time UPS worker who was selling stolen firearms. When they searched his home, they found 16 weapons, burglary tools, police scanners, and disturbing content involving minors on his computers. Most significantly, they found a stolen Glock 17 handgun. That weapon had been taken from a home Scott had burglarized. Ballistics testing matched shell casings from that Glock to shell casings found at the Lofton crime scene. The gun that ended Karen and Carissa Lofton's lives had been sitting in Scott's home. Investigators discovered Scott had been using his access to UPS's database to select victims. He would look up addresses of homes where the database indicated women lived, then target those homes for burglaries. He studied forensic investigation techniques by watching crime shows, researched police methods, and deliberately varied his approach to avoid detection. He wore specific equipment, including balaclava masks and particular brands of gloves. He used bleach to clean crime scenes. He turned off his cell phone and removed the battery to avoid GPS tracking. He monitored police scanner frequencies to track law enforcement response. He had essentially created a manual for how to commit offenses without getting caught. Scott was convicted of 11 federal felony charges in 2011. Judge Peter Messit sentenced him to 100 years in federal prison, calling him a tsunami of crime who shows no indication that he would ever rehabilitate, at least not in this life. However, in exchange for Scott entering an Alford plea in the DeWitt cases, prosecutors dropped charges in the Lofton case. An Alford plea means the defendant doesn't admit guilt, but acknowledges prosecutors have sufficient evidence to convict. The Lofton cases remain officially unsolved in court records. Though investigators have stated publicly they have no doubt Scott was responsible. Jason Thomas Scott is incarcerated at United States Penitentiary, Tucson, with a projected release date of 2073, when he would be 87 years old. He has shown no remorse for his actions and maintains he is innocent of the actual endings, despite the ballistic gun evidence connecting his weapons to the crime scenes. The case has been featured on NBC Dateline, Investigation Discovery, and Oxygen's One Deadly Mistake. Each program has explored how Scott used his UPS database access to target victims and how he studied law enforcement techniques to try to evade capture. What makes the Lofton case particularly heartbreaking is Carissa's 911 call. She knew she was dying, but used her final moments to try to get help, to give police information that might lead to her and her mother's attacker. She whispered into the phone while bleeding, fighting to stay conscious long enough to tell someone what happened. Police arrived quickly, but not quickly enough to save either victim. The 16-year-old, who wanted to be a model and fashion designer, spent her last moments trying to help solve her own case. The nurse who dedicated her career to helping others couldn't protect herself or her daughter when an intruder came through their window at 2:30 in the morning. And the FBI profiler who determined the Lofton and DeWitt cases were just weird coincidences? Both were proven to be the work of the same person, someone who deliberately varied his methods to make investigators think they were looking at different perpetrators. Scott's careful study of forensic techniques almost worked. If not for the unrelated ATF weapons investigation, he might never have been caught. While the Loftons were Scott's first known victims, the DeWitts would be his last, taken just 7 weeks later in a strikingly similar attack. Dolores DeWitt and Ebony DeWitt. Less than 2 months after the Lofton cases, Jason Thomas Scott struck again. This time, his targets were Dolores DeWitt, 42 years old, and her daughter, Ebony DeWitt, 20 years old. Dolores was a licensed nurse at Bradford Oaks Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Ebony had just received her medical assistant certification and was about to start working at Georgetown University Hospital, excited about beginning her healthcare career. On March 16, 2009, around 4 a.m., firefighters responding to a vehicle fire in Largo found 2 bodies, one in the trunk, one in the back seat, of a stolen Nissan Maxima in the driveway of a vacant home. The vehicle was fully engulfed in flames when emergency responders arrived. The bodies were so badly burned that identification required dental records. They were confirmed to be Dolores and Ebony DeWitt. Unlike the Loftons, who were ended with a firearm, the DeWitts had been manually strangled before their bodies were placed in the vehicle. Accelerant had been poured over them and ignited, attempting to destroy evidence of the offenses. The fire was meant to eliminate forensic evidence, DNA, fingerprints, any traces that might connect the perpetrator to the victims. Scott deliberately varied his modus operandi between the 2 double killings to prevent investigators from linking them. He used a firearm for the Loftons, but manual strangulation for the DeWitts. He left the Loftons at their crime scene but moved and burned the DeWitt bodies. He committed the Lofton attack at their home, but took the DeWitts elsewhere before ending their lives. This variation worked initially. The FBI profiler who reviewed both cases concluded they were unrelated. Different methods, different crime scene characteristics, different approaches. Scott had successfully confused the investigation by changing his tactics between attacks. The breakthrough came when investigators found beech tree leaves on Dolores DeWitt's clothing. The leaves matched trees at an abandoned house where Scott stored stolen goods. There were no beech trees where the car was burned. This meant Dolores had been at that abandoned house before being placed in the vehicle, and Scott had access to that location. Scott's first trial in February 2013 ended in mistrial when an ATF agent improperly referenced multiple home invasions during testimony, potentially prejudicing the jury. A second trial was scheduled, but Scott chose to avoid it. On September 25, 2013, he entered an Alford plea in the DeWitt cases, acknowledging prosecutors had sufficient evidence to convict without admitting guilt. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences, with all but 85 years suspended. State's Attorney Angela Alsobrooks characterized Scott as the worst that we've ever seen, without emotion, no remorse whatsoever. He has, I imagine, all the characteristics of someone who hunts people. The systematic way he selected victims, studied law enforcement techniques, and varied his methods suggested someone who viewed these actions as a project to perfect rather than impulsive acts. Scott is serving combined sentences of approximately 185 years between federal and state convictions. He is believed responsible for 5 total endings, including Vilma Butler in 2008, though he was only formally convicted in the DeWitt cases. The Butler case and other potential victims remain under investigation. The case was featured on Oxygen's Dateline: The Smoking Gun in October 2024, examining how investigators finally connected the cases and identified Scott as responsible for both mother-daughter double killings. What makes the DeWitt case particularly disturbing is how close Scott came to succeeding in his deception. The FBI profiler determined the cases weren't connected. The varying methods confuse investigators. The burned bodies destroyed significant forensic evidence. If not for the beach leaves on Dolores's clothing, a tiny detail Scott overlooked, the connection might never have been made. Ebony DeWitt was 20 years old, about to start her first professional job after completing her certification. She had her whole career ahead of her in healthcare. Dolores was a working nurse who had raised her daughter and was proud to see her entering the same field. They were both in healthcare, both dedicated to helping others, both trying to make the world better through their work. And they were targeted by someone who used his UPS database access to find homes with women living alone or with their daughters. Someone who studied how police investigate crimes so he could avoid detection. Someone who deliberately changed his methods to confuse investigators into thinking they were looking at different perpetrators. The systematic nature of Scott's actions, the planning, the research, the deliberate variation of techniques, reveals someone who wasn't acting impulsively, but rather executing a plan. He wanted to take lives and not get caught. He studied how to do both, and he almost succeeded. While Scott's crimes were methodical and planned, the final case involves someone whose violence seemed to erupt suddenly and then vanished without a trace. Bishop family murder. On March 1st, 1976, William Bradford Bishop Jr. learned he had been passed over for a promotion at the State Department where he worked. Bishop was a Yale-educated diplomat who spoke 5 languages fluently and had 4 years of Army counterintelligence experience. The promotion would have advanced his career significantly. Not receiving it was devastating. That afternoon, Bishop withdrew $400 cash from his bank account. He purchased a sledgehammer, shovel, pitchfork, and gas can from a local hardware store. Then he returned to his upscale Bethesda home where his family was waiting. That night, according to investigators, he used the sledgehammer to bludgeon to death his wife Annette, 37 years old, his mother Lobelia, 68, and his 3 sons. He loaded the 5 bodies into the family station wagon and drove 275 miles overnight to a remote swamp in Tyrrell County, North Carolina. Using the shovel and pitchfork he'd purchased, Bishop dug a shallow grave. He placed the 5 bodies inside, doused them with gasoline from the gas can, and set them on fire. On March 8, 1976, forest rangers attracted by smoke discovered the burned remains. On March 18th, Bishop's abandoned station wagon was found at Elkmont Campground in Great Smoky Mountains, National Park, Tennessee, near the Appalachian Trail. William Bradford Bishop has never been found. Nearly 50 years later, he remains one of America's most wanted fugitives. Bishop was added to the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list on April 10, 2014. At that time, the oldest man and oldest case on the list. He was removed in June 2018 because he no longer fit the criteria for the 10 most wanted list. But the case remains active. An Interpol red notice is still in effect, and a $100,000 reward is offered for information leading to his arrest. The most credible sightings have occurred in Europe. In January 1979, State Department colleague Roy Harrell encountered a bearded man in a restroom in Sorrento, Italy. Harrell asked, "Hey, you're Brad Bishop, aren't you?" The man replied, "Oh no," in an American accent, and fled. Sightings have been reported in Sweden, Switzerland, Belgium, and multiple other countries over the decades. In 2014, the FBI exhumed a body from Alabama, an unidentified man who passed away in a 1981 car accident. They hoped it might be Bishop. DNA testing confirmed it was not. The case took an unexpected turn in 2020 when a woman named Kathy Gilchrist used 23andMe DNA testing and discovered Bradford Bishop was her biological father. She was the result of a relationship while Bishop was a Yale student around 1957, decades before the offenses. The FBI confirmed the DNA match in September 2021, using evidence from cigarette butts found in Bishop's abandoned station wagon. Gilchrist published a memoir titled "It's in My Genes," documenting her discovery that her biological father was one of America's most wanted fugitives. Bradford Bishop, if alive, would be 89 years old in 2026. FBI Special Agent Karen Cody believes there is a good chance he is still alive. Given his background as a Foreign Service officer with the Department of State, he knew how to blend in society wherever he went. In the communities, he was like a chameleon. He had skills that would allow him to survive off the grid. His language skills, fluent in 5 languages, including Italian, Spanish, and Serbo-Croatian, would allow him to live in multiple countries without detection. His counterintelligence training would have taught him how to create new identities and avoid surveillance. His education and professional background would let him fit into various communities without raising suspicion. The case has been featured on CNN's The Hunt with John Walsh, NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, and America's Most Wanted multiple times. Each program has generated tips, but none have led to Bishop's capture. What makes this case so bizarre is the complete disappearance. Bishop didn't just flee. He vanished so thoroughly that nearly 50 years of searching by the FBI, Interpol, and multiple international law enforcement agencies hasn't found him. The Sorrento encounter in 1979 suggests he made it to Europe. But since then, nothing confirmed. Did he take his own life somewhere remote where his body was never found? Is he living under an assumed identity in a country where no one would recognize him? Did he die of natural causes years ago under a false name? The complete absence of confirmed sightings since 1979 suggests he either passed away long ago or succeeded in creating a new identity so complete that even his own daughter's DNA discovery couldn't crack it. 5 people were taken from the world on March 1st, 1976. Annette Bishop never saw her 40th birthday. Lobelia Bishop never knew what happened to her son after that night. 3 boys never grew up. And the man accused of taking all 5 lives disappeared so completely that he's become a ghost story. Maybe alive at 89 somewhere in the world. Maybe deceased decades ago in an unmarked grave. Maybe living under a name no one has connected to William Bradford Bishop Jr. Tips can be reported to 1-800-CALL-FBI. Someone, somewhere, may know where Bradford Bishop went after March 18, 1976. After nearly 50 years, his family deserves answers. His victims deserve justice. And if he's still alive, he deserves to finally face accountability for what happened in that Bethesda home on the night he learned about a missed promotion. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.